Morning, everybody. Perfect. All right, everybody, happy Tuesday. It is 11 o'clock. Thank you so much for joining us this morning for our Advocacy Cafe. We are joined by the ARC of New Mexico with Jenny Bartos, the Director of Advocacy and Education. We have an exciting presentation for you all this morning to learn more about their program. They are one of our organizational members here at the New Mexico Coalition Against Domestic Violence. The ARC of New Mexico promotes and protects the human rights of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities and actively supports their full inclusion and participation in the community throughout their lifetimes. We are so excited to have you on here. As other trainings as well, at the end of the session, you are going to receive a survey if you all can complete that to receive your certificate. And with that being said, thank you so much, Jenny, for being here with us and doing this presentation to learn more about what the ARC does in New Mexico.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to start sharing my screen. All right, Teresa, are you able to see the screen?
Yes, you are good to go.
I think I might have some internet issues. Am I frozen? I see. Sorry, Teresa.
No, I can hear you. I think you're good to go. Oh, you might have.
Education. I'm the Director of Advocacy and Education at the ARC of New Mexico, which is a new program. I'm excited to share a little bit of it with you. So I just wanted to say thanks again for having me, and thanks to the coalition for this opportunity to talk a little bit about what we do. Excited to be here. So without further ado, move forward here in the slideshow. So Teresa just kind of mentioned who the ARC of New Mexico is, and she read you our mission statement, and she's dead on. What the ARC of New Mexico is all about is the human rights of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And all of our programs support this mission statement, right? So we've got our public policy officer, Chris Leroy. He's an amazing new addition to the ARC of New Mexico. We have our Master Trust program, our guardianship program, representative payee. We've got a New Mexico Down Syndrome Fund program. And then the remaining bullets you kind of see here on the slide are Advocacy and Education Center, sexual assault advocacy services, our financial education and training, and our community advocacy. That's kind of what I wanted to talk about a little bit today, since it's newer. And we have a lot of great new programs that are starting up. So did I mention that we're new? And I'm really, really happy to be a part of the new initiatives that we're kind of starting up here. We have several programs. Today, I'll kind of highlight our sexual assault services, our advocacy services, just because it's that's probably kind of the one with the most change. It's the newest, and it's the one that we're putting a lot of, we want your input on. I guess I'll just leave it at that. So I'll tell you a little bit about what we do and kind of where we're heading, just to give you an idea of the work that's being done, and look forward to hearing what your thoughts are on it. So we are growing fast. Right now, we're just located in Albuquerque. We do have some community advocates in other locations that stretch across the state, but we are hiring. We're trying to grow right now. We're trying to identify where the need is and what work needs to be done. So here on the screen, I've got some pictures. Some were volunteered. Others were taken off the payroll system for our human resources. So I'm the director, like I mentioned, of the program of our Advocacy and Education Department. On the lower left corner there, and that's my soulmate. She's my canine soulmate, my partner in crime, Atticus. Our sexual assault advocacy services, again, it's located in Albuquerque, and right now we're serving the surrounding 6 counties, and we really hope to grow. Right now, that's just kind of the focus. So we've got our sexual assault advocate, Dan Arison, amazing man in the upper left-hand corner there. We have our crimes victim advocate, that's Monica Corries, and she's on the right side, the middle picture, rock star. Love Dan, love Monica. We've got a great team. We just hired our new general advocate, Sasheen Smith, and we're really, really happy to have her services too. She comes with a lot of great experience. She's the person on the right and at the top. She comes with just great experience, and she's really, really helpful if people need just general housing, general advocacy assistance. We also have regional community advocacy. So in Silver City, we have Vicky Galindo. No picture was available for Vicky in the human resource database, so I don't have a picture to show you, but she's an incredible person who helps a lot of families, a lot of individuals in the Silver City Deming area. And we are hiring for more positions also for community advocacy. So the Northeast, Northwest locations, Southeast, Southwest. So if you know anyone who's interested, send them my way. And our newest initiative is our education program, and that is led by Deanna Gonzalez right now. And she is the person on the right-hand side of the screen and at the bottom. And she runs a financial inclusion program. So training individuals and their families about money, right? Everything from the basics, what is money, to you want to buy a house. She's created all kinds of really educational and great information. So for our education program right now, it's online, of course, during the health pandemic, but the goal is really to raise awareness, right? To develop trainings, support groups for individuals with disabilities and their families, online courses, right? E-learning, co-facilitation opportunities, so people with disabilities can be in the driver's seat and actually do the trainings and the outreach and educate us on what needs to change. So anyway, we're open, we're growing. This is just kind of a snapshot of who we are right now. But there's so much important work to be done, and we'd like to hear kind of what your experience has been. What are the gaps and barriers, in regard to all of this when it comes to supporting people with disabilities? So like I mentioned, I'll be focusing a bit more on the sexual assault services, advocacy services during this presentation. But in every way, all of our programs really focus on supporting self-advocacy, right? Empowering people with disabilities, right? Same for sexual assault, same for any facet of their life. Supporting their families, supporting community initiatives, raising awareness. I think that's a huge component, right? Changing people's perceptions, right? When we don't understand things, it's hard to know where to go with that. So raising initiatives, and of course, systems advocacy. So helping to change policies, laws, what impacts people, how they live their lives, right? What needs to change? So again, Chris Leroy is our public policy officer, and we are so fortunate to have him. So because we're going to be focusing on sexual assault advocacy services, there are so many incredible organizations out there doing really amazing work, right? The coalition, all the coalitions, right? The rape crisis centers, all of the sexual assault providers throughout the state already doing incredible work. So we're not here, to replace any of the incredible work that's being done, but oftentimes, and I think, we talk about this frequently, people with disabilities face really unique barriers. And so that's kind of where our sexual assault advocacy services come into play. Sexual violence against people with disabilities is truly a silent epidemic. People with disabilities, especially intellectual and developmental disabilities, experience the very highest risk of sexual violence and violent victimization. So, they experience what everybody else does, but they face really unique barriers. And all of the research estimates that they're at the highest risk and really, really alarming rates. Every study that's done, ranging from people with IDD are, excuse me, 4 times more likely to experience sexual assault than people without disabilities. 80% of women, 30% of men people with disabilities have experienced sexual violence. Another research, and I did not include all the, where I found this research. I'm happy to share it absolutely after this presentation, but another research right there, the third bullet says at least 50% of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities have been victimized sexually, frequently multiple times. And some studies actually say that's closer to 90%. Yet another study, 49% of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities will experience 10 or more sexually abusive incidents in their lifetimes. So you add all that up, and the odds are a person with an intellectual and developmental disability is at higher risk. So, and I don't like to overload or inundate people with research studies, but I think it's important in telling us where we need to put our attention, where the efforts need to go. And I think it's most important. Your research is great, but to actually listen to the experts, and that is the people with disabilities. That we're here to help them navigate, right, the supports that they need, that they choose. So listening to them is really important. So there was a really incredible survey done. It was a project done 10 years ago now. Dr. Nora Baladarian, amazing woman, actually initiated a project surveying people with disabilities to talk about this. And the results are staggering. I just threw a few of the findings up here on this screen, but we need to pay attention to this. And that's where our efforts for our programs will follow, right? So they found that 2/3 of all the people who were surveyed with intellectual and developmental disabilities had been victims of abuse. And that of those people, 9 out of 10 of those people who were abused reported that not only were they abused multiple times, but that they were abused in multiple ways. And only 1/3 of them reported it. Same reasons, a lot of the same reasons. Other, people without disabilities don't report it. Over half thought nothing's going to happen. Over 1/3 were afraid. 1/3 didn't know how or where to report. But the last bullet on the screen that this survey found of these findings really stands out, because nearly half of them didn't even recognize that they were experiencing abuse because it was so common. Right. So this speaks volumes. Where does our attention need to go? So we see it's obviously, people are huge increased risk, but why? There are countless reasons why, and I think I've narrowed it down just for, over the course of a couple slides, but this tells us a lot. Research estimates that the majority of the time here, the perpetrator, the abuser, is actually known to the person and often plays a role in providing support or care for the person that they're harming, right? Family members, close family friends, job aides, job coaches, transportation staff, right? Residential staff, people who work in their home for 12 hours a day, every day, weekends, recreational staff, school employees, personal care attendants. I mean, the list is truly, it goes on, but I think it's critical that we pay attention to, these are the people who are playing a role in providing the support. They're there to support the person. Again, like I mentioned, there's so many reasons why abuse is more common, why people with intellectual and developmental disabilities are at an increased risk. Some of them right here on your screen, right? They might not realize that it's illegal. They might not realize it's wrong, that they have a right to say no, might not want to get the person into trouble. I'll tell you, my first job in the field was actually working direct support. And I think a lot of us who have worked direct support, the hours, right? It's incredibly difficult work. It's incredibly rewarding work. It brings so much joy, but it's really, really hard. They're long hours, right? And you're completely underpaid. So it's very difficult work, but because of that, there's often a really high turnaround. Support staff, they come and they go. And oftentimes people with disabilities don't really have a large support network to begin with. Maybe they have family who's involved, and maybe they've got friends and social circles, right? But oftentimes, the people who work with them are that's kind of those are their people, right? And they form attachments, and yet that person goes so quickly. There's such a high turnaround that maybe they don't want to get that person into trouble. That's one of the most important people in their lives. Maybe they just don't want to get that person in trouble. They could be threatened. People with disabilities are groomed from a very early age to just be compliant, right? So another reason they're at risk. Also relying on a person. People with disabilities who are receiving specific, supports for that disability, they might rely on the person, and the perpetrator then, using that that perceived power differential to threaten or coerce or force the person. So still more reasons. I think this is my last slide, but you can see, there's a lot of areas, there's a lot of reasons why the very service delivery system that's there to support people actually places them at risk. So even challenges in accessing services to make a report, knowing how to report, get communication like a phone or the internet, right? People with disabilities might have challenges in accessing those tools to report the crime or to get the help. The abuser might take away access to the tools a person with the disability has, right? Take away the computer, take away the phone. And let's just say, a person overcomes all of these barriers and decides, no, I can do, they find a way to make the report, to come, to bring this to light. Talking to the police is a whole different issue, right? I say maybe less likely to be taken seriously, because I don't like using always or never statements, but you can see which way I might lean on this one. They may not be likely to be taken seriously, right? We so often hear this person, not a reliable reporter, person's not credible. No, nothing I can do with this. That's when they finally, bring it to the police. Yet another reason people with disabilities are rarely educated about sexuality or don't really have any kind of assertiveness training. So, or sexual experience oftentimes, right? It's that kind of gets shut down. So they may not even understand the types of touching that are appropriate or inappropriate. And sometimes, depending on the type of disability a person has, that might require some assistance with self-care, with hygiene, right? The people who are there to help support them, touch them, to provide that care. So they might not understand this. So like I mentioned, just a lot of reasons why the very delivery system that's created to meet the needs of people with disabilities actually puts them at a higher risk of sexual violence. So I go over all of this to say, we're living in this silent epidemic, right? It just continues, and it continues because if a person has an intellectual and developmental disability, they're more likely to experience the sexual violence. They're often targeted because of the disability, and they're often not believed because of their disabilities. So what does that tell us, right? It tells us there are barriers to begin with for every survivor of domestic violence, of sexual assault, of sexual abuse, of interpersonal violence, of dating violence, right? There are barriers to getting the support and the tools that you need. But now consider people with disabilities, the additional barriers they face from just reporting it alone. Imagine what they might encounter from start to finish if they do report it, right? Think just getting that initial help, think of a rape crisis center, think of the forms, think of the language used. And people with disabilities might not understand what's being asked of them. Maybe their guardian is there. Oftentimes people with intellectual and developmental disabilities have a legal guardian. This can complicate things, for them quite a bit. So think of what they might encounter with, when the sexual assault nurse examiner, is examining them. Think about their experience with the police or even the judicial system, right? Think about a person without a disability, all the barriers that they face. And it compounds it so much more for people with disabilities. So all that's pretty bleak and dark. and I don't mean to spend too much time on the darkness here, but that's kind of where our program comes in. That's the kind of stuff that we want to pay attention to. And that's where we want to focus our efforts. So we're here to help sexual assault survivors with disabilities. And that's what one of our programs is really focused on right now. Here's what we can do, right? We can believe and listen to the person. We can provide advocacy services. We can help them with navigating resources and options and accessible services. We can help, break down the language. Hey, this form is saying this. We can provide referrals and technical assistance for disability and trauma-informed supports. We can join a person. We can go to a medical or a legal appointment with them to help navigate the system, to help navigate, all of the barriers that they might encounter. We can help them file a police report and identify options or find counselors and support their choices and kind of break it down just as, a navigational support. We're not attorneys. We're not we're not counselors, we're not sexual assault, we're not a rape crisis center, we don't do, SANE exams. But what we can do is support people and be there with them to help them navigate the barriers that they encounter. So that's where we want to focus our efforts with our sexual assault program. And I did put up our mission statement here so that we could take a look at it. And it's really, this encompasses really what our program is about, that I wanted to kind of get your input on later and tell you a little bit about what we're doing. But it's to listen and stand with people in the spirit of advocacy without judgment, and to support their decision making, empower them to navigate and find the tools and support they choose to heal and learn and grow as they reclaim their power. And I've got our information down here. I'll post all this up too, kind of at the end of the presentation, so you can have our contact information. But that's what this program is about, not replacing any amazing work that's already being done out there, but supporting people with disabilities. That's what the ARC is all about. That's where our expertise lies. And we really want to help people who face really unique barriers find what they need. So like I mentioned, we're a new program, and I wanted to kind of give you the upshot in a 90-second history. Probably shouldn't have put 90-second there. Probably should have given myself like 2 minutes, but just giving you an idea of kind of how we started. So we're learning right now. We're learning. We're brand new program, brand new department, but we did have a sexual assault advocacy service a few years back. I want to say about 4 years ago, perhaps. And it was a bit of a false start. I think good services were provided and such, but the infrastructure at the ARC, kind of how we had it set up back then, just didn't support what was needed. So we had an infrastructure overhaul, and that's how this new department was kind of born, right? We were starting over to build a strong foundation. So that just happened. That started in August. And so to build a strong foundation, it's important to really get the right information, to get the right trainings to build a strong program. A lot of disability and trauma informed trainings, hiring people, kind of getting on board, planning. What do we need to do? Where do our efforts need to go? What are the gaps? What are our policies? Do our policies, are they in compliance with the VAWA confidentiality provision? What does our safety planning look like? What are our policies and process? How do we go about this? So kind of like a fresh start, right? To make sure that we get it right. So what I want to tell you about is what our starter initiatives are. And then I would really like to hear from you. Given everything I kind of just went over about how people with disabilities are at such an increased risk of sexual violence and abuse, the goal is really to raise awareness, right? If people don't know it's happening, we can't do anything to help, right? If what we allow continues. And so the more that we can raise awareness and raise education and talk about it and have a safe space to kind of just hold the conversation and listen to what people experience, I think that will guide where our actions go. I think networking with the amazing programs that are doing incredible work out there, that is critical. I think connecting with law enforcement, there is a big need for change with law enforcement and how people with disabilities experience law enforcement, number one, how their reports are received, start to finish, the judicial system experience. We need to make some changes there. We need to support people to make changes there. Flattening the hierarchy, another big initiative. Who's driving all of this? Where are people with disabilities in this picture, right? We want to put self-advocates and their families in the driver's seat. And we want to do that through presentations like this. We're really grateful to be here and to tell you a little bit about our programs, right? We panels, outreach, trainings, talking with people, hearing from people what their experience has been. That's going to be really important as we shape our programs. Conversation cafes like this one, social media and advertising. So these are just some of our starter initiatives, but we need your input. And I say all that, I feel like I've been just talking just really quickly to kind of get through this stuff, but I really think it's critical to hear from people who have been working in this area, right, in supporting people. What have you noticed? What I think any giant undertaking, building new programs and new initiatives, at the start of that, the utilizing that 2 ear, 1 mouth ratio is critical, right? Listen twice as much as you talk. Listen to what people's experience has been. And I'd love to hear from people. I don't know how we are on time, but what have you seen out in this field of sexual assault with people with disabilities? What's your experience been? What are the gaps and where are the gaps? What are the barriers? We talked about those a little bit in this presentation, but there are so many. What should we be paying attention to? What should we be addressing as we build the program? What additional advocacy services are needed for people with disabilities? Let's meet that need. Let's listen to that, right? What's missing and what would help? So I'd like to put up kind of our contact information so you can have it, and then and open it up to what people have seen, what suggestions folks have based on kind of the brief run through I gave today. So this is our contact information. And I've got our email there at the bottom. But I would really, Teresa, I don't know how we are on time. And I would just like to open it up. Do we have an opportunity to kind of hear from folks kind of what their experience has been?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And just to remind everybody, this is a webinar, so please put your comments in the chat. We'll keep an eye out on that. And we do definitely have time. It is 11:26, so you're good. So if you have experience and anything that you all have noticed, please place it in the chat. I have seen a couple of participants that are with our other organizations that might have some feedback or support, and you can definitely also email Jenny Bartos.
Yeah, if people do have input or feedback, I think we're really excited. This is a brand new department. So we've got the general advocacy component of it. We've got the sexual assault component of it. And we have the education component of it, right? So developing trainings, developing, educational videos, interviewing folks to share their experience, giving them that platform. This is what I encountered, and the more that we can bring that to light, the more I think that we can, that will help create the changes that really need to be there. So anything we can develop for the training initiatives, or if you have suggestions for topics, one of the initiatives, I think I mentioned the financial inclusion program, but the Rainbow Support Group, that's something that we'll be starting, and it's for individuals with disabilities who are part of the LGBTQIA community, just to have a safe place to talk about sex, really, good or bad, right? It could be, sexual violence and what we need to do about it. It could be getting married, right? So often not a conversation people with disabilities get to hear about or learn about. So the Rainbow Support Group is really just bringing, what questions you have and talking about it in a safe place. No parents, no guardian, no residential staff, so many people who become involved in their lives, right? So just a safe place to talk about it. So if you have ideas for support groups, we're all ears. And I would really, I mean that, please reach out if you have suggestions. I don't know, I haven't opened up the chat box here.
There is one question, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for creating a space where people can come and actually talk about it. Because the more you talk about something, the more that you're going to raise awareness, and you're able to ask questions and learn about what's currently happening. Because there might be a question within that group that's like, oh, and then they get to talk about it. So
Exactly.
thank you for creating a space for that. There is a question from a participant. What are the current accessibility for survivors with disabilities to system navigators, treatment guardians?
Current accessibility of survivors with disabilities. And I'm not sure if I understand that question. Accessibility. Now, so like, what are the accessibility navigator? Like currently, I don't think people with disabilities have many avenues that they can utilize. I don't know. Could you maybe clarify that question? Or Teresa, do you understand that question better than I am right now? They're definitely treatment guardian.
What is the accessibility for survivors right now with disabilities with navigating the system? I think that's probably what was meant.
Okay, and I think that's just case in point right
Right.
there. So
Yes.
often people
There you go. Yeah.
is that okay, yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's exactly what we're talking about. I don't think there are many avenues. There aren't many navigational options for people. There's some case management agencies, like you mentioned, treatment guardians. Oftentimes, people with disabilities do have guardians who would be involved, unless, of course, they were the perpetrator, right? Then they would not be involved with the process. But support teams, oftentimes, people have IDTs, interdisciplinary teams, to kind of help support the person. But this is also a really private, very, very personal, very traumatic experience that a person goes through. And so I think it's also not wanting your entire support team to help you navigate the options, not to talk about it, kind of who can you go to that might be able to help you. And I think that's kind of where what we're trying to focus our efforts. We can be that for people, right? You can reach out to us and we can help you based on what you choose and what you need, kind of navigate your options, right? Break down forms for you. Call us. We can help walk you through completing an application. We can help, you can come in, we can talk about how to find what it is that you need. So I think that's what we're trying to offer, because we don't see that very often.
Thank you so much for clarifying that.
I hope I did.
Or giving information, right? And thank you for your question as well in the chat. We dissected it. We're good. There's also another comment by another participant, and just stating that it's really important for those organization or mainstream organizations that we work closely with, and that you work closely with, to build capacity so that there's no wrong door to enter for
Yes.
services. And we have such an incredible resource with you, the ARC. So thank you for that comment. There's another question. Are you accepting referrals for new clients with disabilities, or only in Albuquerque for now?
So so yes. Yes is the answer. Absolutely, we're accepting referrals. And right now, I think that the focus, or the intended focus, was Albuquerque and the surrounding 6 areas, right? I can never remember which counties they are: Bernalillo, Sandoval, Santa Fe, Torrance, Valencia, and Cibola. But no, if a person needs assistance, if a person's having a hard time navigating resources anywhere in the state, I've even taken phone calls with people outside of the state, and I can't speak to jurisdiction and authority, and I'm also not an attorney, but just to kind of help guide people, here's where you can find some information. So absolutely, any and all areas, we're more than happy to help. Please send people to us.
And what is that referral process at the ARC?
Sure, I think it we're revamping that also, but
Okay.
just call us. I think it begins with a phone call. So the on-call sexual assault phone number is Dan's phone number here. Is my screen still showing?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
So Dan, so the 505-315-2800, call or text that number. You can also call the office number, which is the 4th bullet down. It's kind of in that orange font. So the 505-883-4630, and ask to speak with the sexual assault advocate or the crimes victim advocate. So either Dan or Monica is probably going to be taking, the initial referral. If they're not available, I can absolutely help out. I think it just starts with reaching out, and we do have, kind of our initial intake process and things like that, but it just starting with the phone call.
Perfect. Thank you. There is another comment from another participant. The gaps and barriers I feel begin with filing a police report.
Mm,
Sometimes the police aren't sensitive towards the victim, especially towards POC.
yeah, I think that I couldn't agree more. Um, I really think that one of our initial efforts needs to be, start building relationships, um, with law enforcement, start meet, the district attorney also. I think there are so many barriers for all survivors, right, when they encounter this. But people with disabilities, just they aren't taken seriously. We, sometimes the reports aren't even taken. The police, everything's kind of that time, like, it's kind of rushing through it. And people with disabilities, you have to just stop and take the time and hear the person and take the report. And if it makes it to the district attorney's office, making the time. So I think that falls on the Arc of New Mexico to really begin starting those conversations and building these relationships, letting them know we're here to help folks, right? Kind of navigate through the process. But I agree, sensitivity and listening aren't very common when people experience this. So if you have ideas, like I said, that's definitely one of our starter initiatives. But anyone's, I don't what all your experience has been, if you have ideas about how to begin kind of, you know, developing trainings, the last thing I'm sure people want to hear is, hey, we can help develop trainings, for law enforcement or the district attorney. But I think it starts with the conversation and getting it on the table and really not backing down. you know People need to be taken seriously, and the time needs to be spent to assist them. And I think that falls on us to really be strong on that front.
I could not agree more with what you just said. It definitely really takes getting those meetings, really talking to them, educating them. And I think that training is obviously something that I love and I enjoy doing. So I would love to continue doing trainings with you, working with something to come up with something to really have on our new training site that will definitely educate. But I think reaching out to law enforcement and local community members and really educating them on what you just educated us with today is really important, because they might not understand, right? They might not see that. Like, they might not even have the resources because they didn't know that they needed it. So I think it's something really important to address, and just having those conversations and connecting with the right people. And the more that you talk about it, the more attention it gets. And I think I'm just really excited to see the growth that you all have had. I know that there's been a few comments in the chat as well, just saying how amazing it's been. So I'm really excited to see, what the future holds for the ARC, and continuing supporting you all and educating our community with what the resources that you have.
Because we can offer those. I really mean that, because I know you all do such incredible work, and there are resources that we can create and we can offer too. Everyone's disability, like, it's not like a one size fits all, right? So everybody needs different things, and there are different, ways to communicate with people based on, different kinds of disabilities, conversation starters, conversation scripts, things like that, ways to ask questions, ways to support people, ways to convey, information. Like, don't hand a giant legal document and think that's going to be effective, right? But so we can offer that kind of support too, and we would love to work with any of you, and how can we help? What can we provide that might help people? So please reach out. We do have a lot of resources and a lot of information. I've developed trainings for the last 8 years in New Mexico, really specific to people with disabilities and effective communication and positive support strategies and things of that nature. So that I have, probably like too many binders of resources to offer, but anything that could be of help, that's what we're here for. So please reach out.
Well, it looks like we already have somebody in the chat reaching out. So we
Oh,
have
good.
somebody from the Second Judicial, would love to connect with you. If you can email Jenny, that would be fantastic. Thank you so much for all of the information, and thank you all for those in the chat. If you all have any more comments or questions or any information or resources that you would like to give, or what you've experienced, please continue placing it in the chat. But yeah, I look forward to everything. It looks like, sorry, you raised your hand and then you lowered it. So if you have any comments, please place them in the chat.
Thank you so much for people who are reaching out too. I think connecting is huge, right? I really think the more that we begin, just we talk to each other and we connect and, kind of build that networking, we can build amazing supports and really make that difference. So thank you for people who have reached out, and yeah, contact me. My email if you use the email that's on the screen at the bottom, that will go to our whole department. So that'll go to me, Dan, Monica, Sasheen, Deanna, and Vicky. It'll go to all 6 of us. Or you can just J Bartos, I'll put it in the chat here. Sure, it's to everyone. Put my email in. You can just email me directly also. There we go.
Awesome.
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, so thank you all so much. I mean, I'd love to stay on if people do have thoughts or, ideas for part of these starter initiatives. If I would love to know what people's experience has been. You all have helped so many people. I think we would really benefit from listening to what your experience has been. So please don't hesitate. Like I said, I'd love to stay on and listen now, but if you want to hold off and just email or call us, that would be phenomenal. We would really appreciate it. So thank you all so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jenny, for being here with us this morning and having this discussion. And thank you, everybody, for those in the chat and joining us via Facebook or the Zoom webinar, for your input, your comments, your suggestions. I really look forward to seeing what comes of the ARC in future. You guys are doing amazing things, and I'm so excited to have met you first and foremost.
Ditto.
And
Yes.
for being here with us today. Again, just a reminder, I will be sending you an email with the resources that I shared earlier, just in case for those of you that have joined us and just registered recently. Just want to make sure you all have that information that you can share with your programs, maybe share on your social media, spread the word. And I will also be sending you the link for the survey where you can obtain your certificate of participation. Again, thank you all for being here today. Please contact Jenny and let me know if I can support you in any other way as well. And again, Jenny, thank you so much for being here in this super informational training. Really appreciate it.
We really appreciate this. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right, everybody, have a fantastic day, and we will see you soon.